Hi there, welcome back to Apatros Review. In this episode, the D Spectrum 7, Part 2. Hi there, welcome back to the Apatros Review, your guide to the wild world of science fiction action horror. With me, your host, Milia Sipka. If you want to spell my name, just look at my channel name. Now, this is the second part of the D Spectrum 7, which is basically, if you've joined this channel, it's basically every 25 episodes I recount the worst films I've done in my show. Now, sometimes I go a little bit over 10 films, sometimes it's a little less. Now, in case you're wondering, these Spectrum films are basically films that get either a 1, a 2, or a 3 out of 10. In other words, a D minus, a D, or a D plus. I don't do Fs, I don't do zeros. Okay. Now, I'm pretty much streamlined these D Spectrum episodes because I've got a lot of films here, and this particular one takes 3 parts, so it's going to be a bit of a lot of films to cover, so I'm going to be as brisk as I can. And for those who joined this channel, well, congratulations for making me your friend. And I basically review science fiction, action, horror films, and a few video games and TV shows and books. I don't have any books lined up for this year, but a couple of video games. I'll keep posting that. Anyway, and by the way, I don't cover films that are currently in the cinema, just films I have on DVD in my collection. Now, okay, let's start with the films. Alright, now, first, Spaceship on Venus. This was directed by Kurt Maitzig in the year 1960. It's a German film. In fact, the original East German film, originally called The Silent Star. I'm reviewing the public domain. I reviewed the public domain English dubbed version. Now, the most expensive film, and by the way, I gave this one a D+, which is a 3 out of 10 means disappointing. Now, the most expensive film ever made by communist East Germany, as a co-production with Poland, and filmed based on an early science fiction novel by legendary Polish genre writer Stanislaw Lem. Although Lem had to add pro-socialist elements to his book in order to get it published, because when he wrote it, Poland was under communist rule. And he also actually disowned the book and subsequently absolutely hated the film adaptation. This is set in alternate 1985, 1985 is my birth year, where socialism rules the world. A spool of magnetic tape is found of alien origins, found in the vicinity of the region where the Tunguska explosion occurred back in 1908. And in case you don't know, Tunguska was where a comet, sometime in the late 1900s, basically exploded over Tunguska region, Siberia, and flattened a shitload of trees. Looked like a nuclear explosion. And so the scientists of this alternate time, the alternate world, examined the spool, and they find it to be a black box flight data recorder of an alien spacecraft that came from Venus, and that the Venetians are planning to inflict nuclear war onto the Earth. In a rush to contact Venus to try to stop their plans, although they haven't gone through their war plans for the better part of 77 years, a multinational team of experts, handpicked for woke reasons. If you think the woke agenda these days is bad, look at 1960 in East Germany, which was a communist time, was sent an advanced space rocket to Venus to respond. But upon reaching the planet, the crew discovered the reason why Venus never went through the war plans. Turns out that due to a tech malfunction of their advanced nuclear weaponry, the Venetians, during a test, accidentally wiped themselves out in a mushroom cloud. Now, while science fiction urban legend has it that the original uncut version of this film was anywhere from 130 minutes to 4 hours in length, the actuality is that the uncut version is only about 90 minutes long, and the American dubbed version only lost about 10 minutes of runtime and was redubbed into English. But that part you probably already know. Regardless of which version you see, the reality is that the first Spaceship on Venus is an extremely boring and unflinchingly socialist sci-fi turkey. Oh sure, the visual effects were pretty decent for 1960. They clearly didn't waste the mega comic bucks they budgeted this thing with, or rubles, with an awesome triple thruster space rocket that blows away any other rocket made during that decade in science fiction film, and the set design is pretty damn good, talking 1960 here. But the badly written storyline with all the socialist commentary is just plain irritating. Those living in Eastern Europe, particularly in the former Eastern Bloc countries, don't think too highly of this film. They consider it as purely communistic propaganda, and the only audience it seems to have are those, those art house types in the Western world, and those who come across the film on those many public domain multipacks that are floating around. Not a terribly good film at all, although it does get extra points for that cool rocket and decent for the time effects. And to be honest, if you really must get this film, get the uncut version because, well, yeah, complete some reasons. Alright, Night of Bloody Terror, directed by Joy N. Houck Jr. in the year 1969. I got this print off the Pure Terror 50 film box set from Mill Creek. When I reviewed this, I gave this a D, which is a 2 out of 10, meaning it's bad. One of a small string of films made by Joy N. Houck Jr., the son of a theater operator who owned something like 200 cinemas throughout the United States, and who decided that since his dad was also responsible for producing some B-grade films in the 1950s, like Edward's El Bizarro crime caper Jailbait. Not what you're thinking. Jailbait about a gun. With his Houck production company, it was inevitable for Junior to make his own movies for the family business, ruling out the middleman, getting rid of the middleman to make even more money. Night of Bloody Horror was a thoroughly nondescript thriller where the killings were done, well, largely off-screen, and when they do get shown, the makeup effects are thoroughly on the dodgy side. A severed mannequin hand and crayon-colored stage blood is all it consists of. Although there are two pretty unconvincing long-dead corpses also shown, who with their ghoulish death grins looks like they're secretly holding their gleeful contempt at this thing. The exposition requirement of the exploitation requirement of nudity not only, well, it's only met at the start with a brief pair of boobs from Lisa Dameron. Being made in the late 1960s, there are some pointless optical effects that make the whole thing look like a joke. The film was marketed as being filmed in violent vision, which consists of the blue swirls that manifest on screen whenever the protagonist has his killer headaches, and the rock band that shows up halfway through, named The Board, basically needlessly photographed in negative colors, an effect that looks out of context and is very daft. A pointless C-grade rip-off of the likes of Psycho and Peeping Tom, which are two much better films. Okay, Guru the Mad Monk. This was the only Andy Milligan film I reviewed in the past while, and it was from 1970, and I basically gave it a D-. It's atrocious. This one was also sourced from the Pure Terror 50 film box set and from Mill Creek. Andy Milligan was a gay director who made his name with a string of ultra-low-budget shot on 16mm period costume dramas that were all extremely impoverished and extremely bad. Milligan was also reputed to be a misogynist and joined the ranks of many gay men who were claimed by AIDS, going to his grave in 1991. To be honest, the story that Milligan was trying to tell, Guru the Mad Monk, is pretty interesting. A deranged 15th century prison colony chaplain exploiting his power to obtain more money for his church, and partaking a little grave robbing with his vampire mistress and a surprisingly resilient one-eyed hunchback, whose plans come to a violent end after he grants Seven a pretty big favor to save the life of his lover. But for the utter lack of resources proved to be this film's undoing. There are, actually that and the seriously half-assed nature of the production values on display here. There are a wide variety of anachronistic goofs that prove to be unintentionally hilarious and are quite amazing when you take the time to think about it. I mean, there's one villager wearing modern pants, there's a modern light switch barely seen, briefly, the church's sign being a printed piece of paper badly tacked on, and with the most amazing thing you see, the scene stealing an astounding appearance of a white motor scooter visible just behind the gate when Guru meets the bishop and his replacement. I didn't know that Guru was messing around with time travel. Honestly, if you watch that scene, you can see it on the right-hand side of the screen. It's actually behind the gate. In the 15th century, white motor scooter. Now, the acting is clearly amateurish, but the cast treat the exercise seriously, which makes the ineptly flat 16mm photography, by the way, Andy Milligan shot all his films on 16mm, even more hideously bad. Okay. Now, a year later, from that film, we got Point of Terror, directed by Alex Nicole, also from the Pure Terror 50 film box set from Mill Creek. This one I give a D. Why in the frigging heck did Crown International build this dim-witted melodramatic soap opera with some of the most awful songs to grace the 1970s exploitation genre as a horror movie? Those clowns at Crown sure knew how to package their turkeys in order to make a quick buck at the expense of the audience. Anyway, Point of Terror was the last of a small number of films made by star Peter Carpenter. In fact, he died of a stroke about 2 months after the film's premiere and 2 years before the film went to general release. who really gives his atrociously tacky wardrobe and singing skills their last ever cinematic work on this new atrocity. The opening credits are hilarious, with Carpenter, who wants to be somewhat like a Tom Jones wannabe, belting out the first of his tone-deaf songs while basically wearing a red-tinged fringed outfit, which has tassels that stick out of his jacket and his trousers that basically cut the circulation to his legs if he wore them for too long. Even the devil wouldn't be caught dead wearing an outfit like that. I believe he reserves that sort of apparel to the lounge singers working in Hell's nightclubs, only with the tassels and constant fire, which I actually heard helps the act by making them suffer as much as the audience do with those sorts of bad songs they usually play down there. Point of Terror is a really bad melodramatic drama about a very bad Tom Jones wannabe who, working at the Lobster House, it's a real life nightclub by the way, not Lobster House, who sleeps with the big busted wife of a big shot record producer who can't seem to keep still even with his legs useless and sitting in a motorized wheelchair in order to basically, get that elusive record contract that will make him a star. No chance of that happening though. And break his gig at the Lobster House, like I said, real life nightclub. But Tony can't keep his one-eyed wonder snake in his pants when he meets his new squeeze's stepdaughter, who he then beds as well. So this guy's basically cheating on his girlfriend, cheating on his record producer's wife, and now his stepdaughter. Man, this guy really can't keep in his pants. Now the film has no clear aim of where it wants to go, as well as the horrible songs and bad dancing that Peter Carpenter displayed during his routine. Fans of Crown's catalogue of bad B-grade cheapies would go for this sort of thing if they were not busy laughing themselves to the hospital's emergency department from the tackiness on display here. The print featured in the Pure Terror film box set, by the way, from Mill Creek, is of the uncut theatrical version with the nudity and violence left intact. It actually runs 10 minutes shorter than the TV version, which is actually cut, but has extra scenes just to pad up the runtime. Okay, last film for this part, Madam, directed by Scott Amendolara and Zuri Myman, 1993. I got this sort of a cheap DVD from Payless Entertainment. Payless Entertainment, basically the leader of the Australian dirt cheap budget basement $2 shop dime store sort of labels. Now, this film I gave a D, and by the way, I don't think most people even heard of this film. Completely obscure. Apparently based on the real-life story of a prostitute working for the infamous Hollywood Madame Heidi Fleiss, this low-budget, independently produced 1993 direct-to-video drama Madam is a rather pointlessly superficial pseudo-documentary with a variety of talking heads comprised of former call girls who each get about a minute's worth detailing their experiences. They're portrayed by actresses in order to provide some privacy to the experts in the sex industry. The main story consists of a clueless, a rather incompetent, not to mention very bad at dressing, female tabloid reporter who gets fired from a trashy job for being too aggressive in her reports, only to go into the freelance business by doing an undercover expose of the local Hollywood brothels. Getting a job as a high-class hooker, the reporter quickly realizes she's in over her head, but keeps on going down the path which she will very soon regret, destroying her relationship with her otherwise forgiving boyfriend and otherwise supportive sister, and also destroy her own life by taking drugs. The producer's decision to simply sit on the fence without either praising or condemning the sex industry was an epic miscalculation that winds up sinking the film. Although the very nicely staged full frontal you see halfway through and the amount of juicy details from the experts keeps me from giving this a D-, settling on a D instead. It's basically a 2 out of 10. It's not terrible, but just bad. And that film, if you want to find it was like direct-to-video when it came out in 1993, but the only DVD I've seen is like that cheap DVD I got from Payless Entertainment. Okay, that's it for part 2 of the D Spectrum 7. There is a part 3 coming in 3 days' time, and just keep watching. And by the way, I don't do requests, but if you want to have a particular film in my collection, just hit me up in the comments section. Also, if you have any questions about DVDs, for example, if the particular film is available in a certain country, or if it's uncut, usually about Australia or Britain or so on, or any technical problems, I'll be happy to answer. Okay, I hope you guys are staying safe, and that's it for this review.